What up, what up? Salvador Briggman here, hailing in from Miami, Florida. Wherever you are in this world, whether you're in the United States or Canada, or you're in Europe, or you're in a beautiful tropical paradise somewhere in the world, thank you so much for tuning in to this particular podcast episode. It means a lot to me, and I hope that as well, as you've been listening to maybe some other ones, you've discovered some guests that have really resonated with you. So today's episode to me is really great if you've ever actually considered the possibility of doing not only a six-figure campaign, right, when it comes to a crowdfunding campaign, for example, on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, but what if you could actually raise more than $500,000 with this campaign? Take a second to really consider. If you actually had $600,000 that you raised with a campaign, how would that change your life? How would that change your product? How would that change what you can do from the future, from this point going forward? How would that allow you to maybe grow out your brand or grow out your mission or grow out even your team, right? When it comes to your actual business, when it comes to the individual product which you've developed, the invention which you have, right? Whatever you've been working on, your project, you've been probably thinking about this for a while. It could have been a couple of months, it could have been years, right? You've been in development here, but it's really culminated at this point in time where, in my opinion, you start to realize that other people are having an easier time, right, than you are. And it's one of those funny times where it's like, oh man, like, I think I'm a smart guy. I think I've been working hard, but I see other people that are having an easier time at success. And there's two decisions you can make, right? The first decision is you could either be envious and angry about that, or you could take that as a learning opportunity. And you can actually study what they're doing to be successful. And then you know what you do? You just do the exact same things, right? You study the process, you become a student of the craft. You really sink your teeth into all of the knowledge, all of the education, the books, the blog posts, the podcasts, the YouTube videos that I put out for you guys weekly. And you can learn this process, or you can put up your hands and say, you know what, I give up, right? Or I don't believe that I could do this. Well, I started to have a lot of people in the early days say that to me. And they're like, Sal, this is too hard. This is too complicated. There's no way I could do this. So I made it my mission to convince you that it is possible. And that's why I started this podcast. I brought on people every single week. I started talking with them. I started to discover some of the insider tricks of the trade when it comes to doing a crowdfunding campaign. And lo and behold, we started to have listeners who listen to this show be successful. And they started to come back on this show and be like, Sal, I can't believe that this worked. And I did this and it got funding and it's like amazing. Now I have a whole company that started from scratch. So if you want that to be your story, you gotta lean into the process. You gotta become a student. You really gotta focus on this. Okay. And I think you're going to learn a lot in today's particular podcast episode when it comes to how to structure this in a scientific way. And that's, again, why I call my podcast Crowdfunding Demystified, because we take a very mysterious process and we break it down. We break it apart. We analyze it. We create a scientific formula for how you can actually get results. And I've literally put that entire formula, my secret sauce for doing a campaign, into my book, The Kickstarter Launch Formula. This is an incredible place to get started for anyone out there who really wants to launch a campaign, who's serious about it, who's willing to read a book on it. Think about all the people that we have out there that aren't willing to read books. You're actually willing to pick up a book and learn step by step how to actually accomplish something, how to actually have a result. You're willing to invest and put your time into that. So if you want to check out this book, Audible is doing a promo and you can get a free copy of the Kickstarter Launch Formula. If you also get a free 30-day trial of Audible, you can go to this link at crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. That's crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. That link will take you there, crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. If you want a paperback version that you can write in the margins, you can underline things, you can remember things. I love writing in books, man. I know you're not supposed to do that. It's kind of like taboo, but I encourage you, write in my book, right? It's a great way to remember things and underline things. And you can also put that on your bookshelf one day and like, look at that. I did that six-figure campaign and that book is what got me started. You can go and check out that at crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter formula. That is crowdcrux.com. crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter formula. That link will take you to the paperback version on Amazon. So that being said, I really want to dive into this episode, but I do need to mention one other thing, and that's if you are also looking to really kind of figure this out for yourself and you want to really, put this on a faster pace for you, I'm going to mention at the end of the show as well a unique link that I'm going to be doing. It's actually for a workshop. It's for something that I'm doing that not a lot of people know about. So I'm actually going to be sharing sharing that at the end of this podcast if you do stick around. But thank you so much. Let's get into this show and discover how this individual was able to raise over $600,000 for their campaign. And it's coming up right after this. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Today we're speaking with an incredible campaign that's been able to smash and blow past their goal. And really this is for a family bulletin board that's been reimagined, a digital calendar and task manager to organize your household all in one place. And this is the Hearth Display. And we are lucky enough to have Susie, who's the co-founder of this project, on the line. Susie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Definitely. So maybe we can kind of get started. You can fill some gaps in for that intro, and you can let the listeners know a bit more about you and the project.
Yeah, absolutely. You did a beautiful job explaining Hearth Display, but as you said, I'll just give a little bit more background. So at Hearth, we're building technology to make the pain points of family management easier and more equitable. And so broadly speaking, our mission is to democratize household labor across all members of the family, partners and kids included. And our first entry point into the market, like you said, is that core product, Hearth Display, which replaces all the analog tools a family uses to manage their lives. So, today, just like 50 years ago, families are still using whiteboards, Post-it notes, grocery lists, chore charts, sticker charts, etc., to manage their lives. And we find that all of
chaotic.
Yes, very chaotic. And we find that all of those sources of information are completely disaggregated. You'll find that a family often has at least 5 different places of disaggregated information that they're going to on any one day to manage their lives, whether that's a digital calendar, an analog calendar, a to-do list, a chore chart, a PDF, that got printed out and brought home in a backpack with one of their kids. You name it, there's so many different sources of information. And because none of those pieces of information speak to each other, we often find that that's where the ball gets dropped and something gets missed. And when something gets missed, what do we, typically see? We see that friction starts to develop in a household when it comes to communication between family members. And that's really what we're looking to solve. Is we're trying to make space for more memorable moments and more positive interactions in a family's life by making this piece of family management easier and frictionless for them as a family. So that's what Hearth is about, and Hearth Display is our first product helping do that.
And what were you doing before you really embarked on this mission, right? To really kind of make the family life more equitable and much more organized. What were you doing before you embarked on that mission?
Yeah, I have spent most of my career in tech, as have my 2 co-founders. So I have 2 other co-founders. All 3 of us are women. All 3 of us have spent our careers in tech. And we kind of saw throughout our careers that we had all of these project management tools at work to help make life easier, professionally speaking. We have, you name it, there's so many different solutions out there for project management in the workplace. And yet when you look at what a parent is still managing their projects using a whiteboard. And yet when you think about running a household, there's so many similarities between running a household and that of running a business. There's budgets you have to adhere to, there's deadlines you have to meet, there's stakeholders involved, there's people you have to communicate with and delegate to. There's so many of the same dynamics that play in a household. And we thought, why is it that at work in tech, we're able to use all of these tools to create better, efficient processes, but at home, parents don't have those same tools?
Tell me the story of when you really first grasped the vital importance of this problem, or when you actually experienced the problem. Tell me the story of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a lot of people experience it even more so than they realize. My husband and I have very busy lives. We both are working. We're both managing our household at the same time. And I think it it was that light bulb moment of realizing, wow, at work, I have all of these different tools where I can communicate to somebody when something needs to get done. But when I'm trying to communicate with my husband about something that needs to get done at home, why is it so much harder? Why is there not a system? Why do we both forget things all the time? Why is it that I'm texting him in the middle of the day about something we need to get done at home, and that text message is popping up on his computer in the middle of a presentation he's giving, instead of there being a simple tool to keep all of that information in one place, just like there would be at work? And I think there was that reflection of, wow, there really is no system. We're even us as two people, our lives are already disaggregated and disorganized. And when we started to talk to families, we started talking to families about 2 years ago. We've talked to over 3,000 families. We obviously realized that just exponentially grows the more people that you introduce into that household.
You definitely work in tech, because I think the majority of people would experience that problem and just be like, that kind of sucks. Right. But it sounds like you actually put your brain to it and like came up with a solution, right, to help that.
I think once you see it, it's hard to unsee it. I think, at least for me, maybe that's why I founded the business with my co-founders. But I think once you see that there's a better solution out there, then you start to see how inefficient current practices really are.
So what kind of prompted the conversation around Indiegogo? Why did you choose to launch this on a crowdfunding site?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for us, it definitely was something that we had a lot of consideration around, what was the right way to introduce Hearth to the world? How should we find customers? What does that process look like? And I think there were a few things that we considered. And, just to we even considered not doing crowdfunding at all. We considered launching on a more traditional e-commerce platform or something like that. But there's a lot of reasons why we ultimately chose to launch on a crowdfunding platform, and we're quite happy that we did. I think there are three things that helped make that decision for us. One being business stage, one being the type of customer we wanted to attract, and the final thing being just how we wanted to tell the story of our business. So with business stage, I think for us, we realized, okay, we're early on, we're still developing our relationships with our manufacturers for the display itself. We're still in progress building the software. We're not at the point where, somebody can come to our website, order Hearth, and have it show up on their doorstep 2 weeks later. We truly are in that pre-order phase of business. And so what platform is already purpose built for that exact phase of business? That's exactly what crowdfunding is built for, So I think thinking about that business stage, I
think that's really smart.
We could have, in theory, used other tools to still have the same effect, if that makes sense. But when I really looked at it, I was like, I'm either going to go out and cobble together a bunch of tools to create my own pre-order, campaign, or I'm going to use something that is specifically purpose built for this business stage. And that was a huge reason we chose Indiegogo.
When it comes to putting together that campaign, how long did that take you? Was that like a month? Was that a couple of months? How long did it really take you to put together a good campaign?
Oh gosh, we started working on it at least 6 months before the campaign, 7 months before the campaign launched. And even prior to that, we had already made the decision. We'd already done the pre-work and the research to know how we were moving forward. So we spent 7 months fully focused on prepping for the campaign.
Wow. So you're prepping, you also have your job, you also have a full household, right? So you have a lot of stuff going on in your life. I imagine that's definitely, a chaotic period. What was going through your head the day or the night before you went live with this?
Oh my gosh. I think it was just so much pent up excitement. And I think, that night before you realize there's nothing more you can do. You're sitting there knowing that if you haven't done it yet, it's not going to get done, which is a freeing feeling, going into it. And just, it was like the night before Christmas, waking and wanting to wake up on Christmas morning, so to speak, and have the campaign be a success.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, at that point in time, you spent so many months already preparing it. There's only so much you can do, right? And it sounds like you also had a deep understanding of what your customers might be?
Yes, I think that was honestly really, really critical to our success. It was really important to us to speak authentically to our customers and to understand how our customers differed from a typical crowdfund backer. Most crowdfund backers, like 7 out of 10 crowdfund backers, are men. They're typically like early adopters. They're typically people who have transacted on a crowdfunding platform before. They usually live in cities, things like that. And the truth is that our core audience is very different than that. Our core audience is women, typically moms, usually with 2 or more kids, ages 4 to 11. Typically, they live in suburban areas, and most of our customers had never participated in a crowdfunding campaign before. And so during those 7 months, we spent so much time figuring out the right messaging for our specific audience to ensure that they were ready to purchase when we launched.
Yeah, I can imagine that'd be a little bit scary, right? Because you're kind of going against a little bit of the trends, but you also know you have a great product, right? So
yes, exactly.
What happened like the first couple of days or the first week after you went live with that campaign?
Yeah, honestly, it was scary. It was scary launching without, like you said, like launching a product that in some aspects is typical to crowdfunding, but in some aspects is very much not typical to crowdfunding. And, in order to prepare for that, I had actually reached out and talked to several founders who had also launched and had very successful female-focused products launch on Kickstarter and Indiegogo, just to kind of help understand what should we expect going into this, knowing that the vast majority of the audience that is active on like a platform like Indiegogo or Kickstarter doesn't look like ours. But thankfully on that launch day, we had honestly really, really worked hard to build community and trust with our audience. We had so many touch points with them leading up to the campaign that they were ready to purchase on that first day. And we actually saw, almost half of our revenue come in just on that first day alone.
Wow. Congratulations. That's huge.
Yeah, it was an exciting first day, but I think, it is because of that 7 months of prep work that we did. If you think about Hearth, it's not only are we talking to a slightly different audience than your typical crowdfund campaign, but it's also a higher price point product, which means it's a high consideration purchase for a household. It's a higher price point product. It's something that takes up real estate in your home, in a centrally located area of your home. And it's something that we found that the family was discussing together. It wasn't often that one single individual made the decision to purchase Hearth. It's that somebody was talking to their partner or talking to their family about Hearth being introduced to their lives. And because of that, it was really important for us to have many, many touch points with our customer along the way to get them ready for the campaign.
I think a lot of people are afraid of having so long of a pre-launch or so long of a preparation phase. They don't really know what to say, right? Were you just kind of like once a week engaging people, or how were you maintaining their interest throughout that long period when you were in the development of the campaign?
Yeah, I mean, we did a lot of high touch point, a lot of one-on-one communication, like things that definitely, as your business grows aren't scalable, but you know what they say? They say like, do the unscalable thing until you earn the right to no longer do those things, And that was very much the mindset that I took, is I was on literal calls, one-on-one calls with customers leading up to the campaign, answering their questions, FaceTiming them, talking about Hearth. We had a very active and engaged Facebook group. We launched a Facebook group, and during those 7 months, we were in that Facebook group daily, answering questions, posting behind the scenes updates, and really personalizing that experience for our audience and really bringing them along that journey of what it looked like to be a, female founded small company trying to tackle this problem that we're trying to solve, and how they can be an important and integral piece of helping us solve that.
So you go live, you're able to get to at least half of your revenue within the first couple of days. What did that mean to you? Like, what did that feel like to really know that this was connecting with people out there?
I think, it was incredibly validating of the problem that we're trying to solve and the solution that we have introduced to help solve that. I think, we're building this company because we truly care about those interactions between family members and improving what that communication looks like, and improving just like independence and empowerment inside the home for kids, as well as giving families a system to use where there just previously hasn't been a system before. And, you can believe all those things, but you don't really know if others believe you until they actually put down, they pull out their credit card and actually say, yes, I believe you enough to buy your product.
If you're worried about the fulfillment and shipping part of your Kickstarter campaign when it comes to getting out all those perks and rewards to your backers, rest assured I've put together a complete Kickstarter fulfillment and shipping checklist for you, and it's free. This is sponsored by the folks at Fulfillrite, and they thought that you should have this checklist as part of your arsenal going into a crowdfunding campaign. If you want to get instant access to this checklist, and it's free, you can go to fulfillrite.com/checklist. Again, that is fulfillrite.com/checklist, fulfillrite.com/checklist. Just go to that link and you can download it immediately.
Did you have like an internal party, or did you guys like celebrate it in some way, or like what was happening behind the scenes?
Yes and no. I mean, it was an incredible first day, but you're still in the trenches of the campaign, right? So you watch that first 48 hours happen, and it is incredibly exciting to know that there's momentum, but your immediate next thought is, how do I maintain this momentum? How do I not let this die? What do I need to do now to make sure that the rest of the campaign goes well? So you get to celebrate, but you definitely don't get to rest.
Yeah. Because I imagine then you also have to think as well about like, okay, now we've done so well. How do we do even better? And then how do we, move into fulfillment at a certain point in time? So there's definitely a lot of decision points there.
Yes.
So one question, like you mentioned at the beginning, really wanting to make an impact, right? When it comes to families around the world. What do you feel like has been the most rewarding aspect of doing the campaign for you?
Oh my gosh. Well, we just started delivering to our customers. We started delivering the first units recently, last month. And obviously that has just been so gratifying. We've had families, sharing their experiences of unboxing their hearth, hanging it on the wall, and then sharing the experience of their family actually starting to use it. And that has been an incredible experience. We had one customer say immediately that the to-dos feature, which are, individual to-do lists for family members, she said to-dos are absolutely life-changing for my kids because they actually are excited about understanding what their responsibilities are in the house, and they can self-serve that information to themselves on Hearth, and they just know what's expected of them. And that's been life-changing. Just little things like that, knowing that that we're already making an impact even in these early days, obviously is incredibly gratifying.
Yeah. And I think too, it's obviously something that's going to be continuing in evolution, right? So with tech,
yes.
It's something that's kind of like always improving. How does this compare to, doing your own project, having your own co-founders? How does that compare to more of your day job, your full-time job? Is it as satisfying as just kind of like a different style? How does it compare?
I went full-time with Hearth quite a while ago. So this has been my full-time job for a while. We have a team of 8 actually working on Hearth full-time.
Okay, super exciting. So you went full-time, and now this is definitely your sole focus. I guess one of the questions that I would have for you is, a lot of people in the audience who are working like a full-time job and they're also working this on the side, they struggle a lot with figuring out how to focus and figuring out what they should be focused on, because there's so much you should do, right? If you had to pick like 1 or 2 things, what do you think that a beginning creator should focus on in order to see success, or in order to really get funding in the way that you have?
I think the biggest thing to focus on is spending your time talking and therefore talking to and therefore understanding your audience. I think there's so much advice out there around, the playbook for crowdfunding. And by no means am I not saying that some of those tactics didn't work for us. Absolutely. Read the books, do the research. But the thing that was most transformative for us was actually fully understanding our audience, talking to them, and building a relationship. And so for us, that meant primarily, I mean, we did a bunch of different things, but if you're going to focus on one thing, for us, it really was building this Facebook group. I think letting people into this Facebook group so that they could really talk to us, like not just talk to Hearth, the company, but talk to Susie, me as a human, and really understand our heart behind the vision of the company and ask questions and actually get a response from a real human, like building that relationship. People can sense when you're being authentic and when you're just following a playbook. And I think, the playbook's important, but I think if you only have a limited amount of time, creating an avenue where you can get to know your customers and where they can talk to you is the most important thing.
Got it. So focus on, creating that kind of channel where you can discuss with your customers. You mentioned this idea of like a playbook, right? And this kind of script for you to follow. Do you feel like there are any points that are left out of that playbook aside from needing to communicate with your customers? Or do you feel like for beginning creators, they're like Googling lots, like, okay, I got to do this, this, and this. Do you feel like there's any times when you should not be following that formulaic advice?
Yeah, honestly, we had a lot of great advice from people. There were definitely founders who actually took time out of their day to have a one-on-one conversation with me around their campaigns. Shout out to Gareth from Lomi, and I'm trying to think of who else. Omri from Nimble Beauty. Both of them actually took time out of their day to talk to me and walk me through their personal experiences of launching a campaign. And those things were much more helpful than the playbook, so to speak, because obviously every playbook lacks nuance and personalization for that specific campaign. And that's really what I had to learn, is I honestly had to learn to trust my gut. We had a lot of, quote unquote experts telling us how to message our product, and they didn't like the way that we were messaging it. They said that the way that we were messaging Hearth was not going to be successful in crowdfunding. They were saying that we needed to broaden our messaging and, that we were focusing on too small of a niche. And they really wanted to kind of take the niche and the heart out of the messaging. And we just felt very strongly that wasn't right for our audience. And honestly, the proof was in the numbers, because we actually ran 2 separate marketing funnels during those 7 months. We ran a marketing funnel that was kind of that more broad playbook language that kind of followed exactly what a crowdfunder would maybe tell you to do. And then we also ran a completely separate funnel that was more focused on the way that we felt people should hear about Hearth and learn about Hearth. And our funnel outperformed the broader funnel 10 times over. And so
I love that. Yeah, that's great. I was just going to say that's I love that. I love that because, you're not just taking what people are saying and just employing it, but you're actually looking at the data and you're trying things out. And for your own audience, you're making those decisions. And I think that's honestly the best way to go about it.
Exactly. I'm not, obviously don't throw out that advice. There's so much that we learned about the tactics that we should use for a successful crowdfunding campaign. But then once you learn the tactics, you then have to personalize it and trust your own gut that you know your audience best.
So you ran this campaign, you're successful. A lot of people look at you and oh my gosh, this team was able to raise 600K, over 1,200 backers. It seems ginormous, right? Was this kind of in your expectations? Was this bigger than what you expected? What was in line when it came to what you were thinking of crowdfunding and how it would bring you revenue?
To be honest, maybe this is an annoying answer, but it's pretty much exactly what we expected. And the reason why is because we did a ton of prep work to understand what we should expect. No, you can't predict everything, but you can kind of understand the math, so to speak, of your marketing funnel. And you can use industry benchmarks to kind of understand what you should expect to happen. And you should be thinking about that from day one. You shouldn't be thinking about that on launch day. You should be thinking about that 7 months before to say, okay, if we want to have this type of result, how many people do we need to have as customers? And if we need that many customers, how many eyeballs do we need to see at the very beginning of the funnel in order to have that outcome? And we very much understood that the entire time. And we're working toward very specific goals in terms of impressions, how many people joined our wait list, how many email addresses did we capture, all of those things. We knew exactly what numbers we wanted to hit to have the revenue outcome that we wanted at the end.
And I think that's something that, is almost like a scientific way, right, of approaching the process. And you do have kind of the art and the creative side of coming up with different angles, but you also really have a strong, like, scientific view of breaking down the process, breaking down the funnel, right? And really attacking it that way.
Exactly. Like, it shouldn't be a huge surprise. Of course, you're going to have a range, you're going to have a range, and the numbers that you're looking at aren't going to be exactly accurate. They're going to, flex on either side, but it shouldn't be, if you've gone into the campaign preparing, and really thinking about that desired outcome, it shouldn't be a huge surprise.
So you basically invented this entire new product, right? Something that a lot of families around the world can use. What was like the reaction of when you finally had this successful campaign? What were some of the people in your lives reacting to this? How were they reacting to your campaign?
I mean, it was so fun to finally, have something that was very public out in the world. We had been working on Hearth for quite a while prior to this campaign launching, and finally having it out in the world in a way that people could actually support it by, purchasing the product was definitely a really exciting moment, because everyone in our lives had known that this is something that we were working on behind the scenes, but hadn't really gotten to see what that looked like from an external perspective. And so it was kind of the first moment for that.
Yeah, I'm sure it was super cool, right? And especially, now that people are actually able to receive it, right, and be able to have this in their home, like, that just must be such a cool, rewarding feeling. Is there anything else you'd like to communicate to the audience about your product or about any kind of promotions that you're doing here in the future?
Sure. Yeah. So as I mentioned, we've started delivering our first production run. We sold out of our first production run with our Indiegogo campaign. We've started delivering that first production run now. And as soon as that first production run's fully delivered, we'll be ready to deliver the second. And so in preparation for that second production run, we're actually reopening orders this May. So just a few months away, this time directly on our site. We're not doing a crowdfunding campaign, but directly at hearthdisplay.com. So if anybody is interested in purchasing Hearth, you can get on the wait list now to be notified of when orders reopen in just a few months.
I can already see this going like super viral on TikTok. I mean, I think that
it has. It has.
Yeah. It's like such a great product for it, honestly. And in so many different use cases, I can already see like the way you can organize a household, like get rid of all the pain as well that comes with that, right? Which is so unspoken.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. Well, first of all, in terms of the link that people should go to, so you have the Indiegogo, what was the link again that they can check out in terms of your website?
Yeah, our website is hearthdisplay.com.
Okay, awesome. So I'll be sure to include that in the show notes. My final question for you here is, and we can end on this note, we can end with either a final tip or tactic you'd like to share about crowdfunding. We could end with a word of encouragement to the audience. We could end with a quote that you've liked or that someone has given you advice in the past, anything along those lines, and we can end on that note.
Sure. I guess I'll do the first, a final tip. And I guess this, obviously is similar to what I've already mentioned, but I think it was really important for me to put myself in my customers' shoes at every step of the journey. If you think about who your customer is, especially in our case, like, think about what you're asking someone to do truly, like you're asking them to purchase an expensive product that they've never seen before. There's no social proof that your product works. They've never seen a friend use your product. They've never seen an influencer endorse your product. They've never seen your product in real life. You're asking them to purchase it sight unseen from a random website. Like, for our audience, they weren't familiar with an Indiegogo site. They didn't really know what Indiegogo was. And then when they're on that site, Indiegogo is telling them, that they might not ever see their money again, that the product is a prototype or very early stage. And then you're asking them to wait forever to get that product, an indeterminate amount of time to get that product. And all they have to go on is, your updates that you're giving them. And to them, you're just a stranger, And then on top of all of that, there's all these news articles out there that talk about, unfortunately, crowdfunding campaigns that have failed, And so that's a lot to ask of someone. Like, that's a lot of hoops to ask somebody to jump through to purchase your product. And I think if more people actually empathized with the customer and actually thought, okay, if that were me, what would it take to get me to actually purchase this product, knowing all of those barriers? I think, and then reframed their messaging to meet those steps along the way. I think a lot more people would just like be more genuine and have more success in the way that they message their product to customers.
And I think that's, just to kind of add on to that, I think that is so, incredibly important, and it's very difficult to do, is like put yourself into someone else's shoes, right? But at the end of the day, it's not like you're trying to push this on people or asking them for something. It's more like you're giving them something and having to show why it is that this is, such a great, going to be beneficial for their life, right?
Exactly. And why they should trust you at this why they should trust you with their money when you're at such an early stage. Like, I think it's just like the more transparent and authentic you can be with your audience about those pieces, the more likely they are to actually go on this journey with you.
Well said. Well said. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Susie. Really looking forward to seeing where you go with this campaign and the product, and love to have you back if you guys end up doing another project.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's been great to chat, and I so appreciate you having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Again, my name is Salvador Briggman, and I'm a passionate man. I love my work. I'm so in love with it. It's been many years since I started my blog, Crowdcrux, and it's almost like a love affair, man. You got that woman in your life who, you start, you have a very passionate, fiery romance, and, sometimes it dies out, but sometimes it just keeps on burning. It's like that white hot, searing coal, right, that you always love and you come back to, and you have that passionate love affair. And that's how I feel about my industry. That's how I feel about crowdfunding. That's how I feel about my work, right? With this podcast, with my YouTube channel, with my books, with my blog, with my coaching, with my agency, with everything. Dude, I am just stoked about this. And I think that the reason why is that you can actually launch something from scratch into the world and impact other people for the positive. And that is such a cool feeling, dude. That is so amazing to come out with something completely new, to build a brand from nothing, and to really have a long-lasting, durable product that other people can use and benefit from. And you can have all of these incredible success stories of people taking photos and posting on Instagram, right? Or actually meeting people who have your product in person. Like that's so cool, and using it every single day in their life. It's one of the most unique feelings, I think, that any creator or entrepreneur can actually experience. So one of the things I want to mention is that for those of you that kind of want to learn what goes into an actual campaign launch and really get into the nuts and bolts behind that, as well as some of the ways in which you can blow past your goal, and you can do this efficiently. You can do this even if you don't have a big following. You can do this even if you don't have necessarily a huge budget. I got a special link for you that I'm going to be sharing with you right now, is that I'm putting on a masterclass that's going to share with you over the course of about an hour, a little bit more, how to do this. So I'm sharing a lot of key stuff, a lot of valuable stuff. You got to bring your A game. You got to bring a notebook, right? You really got to take some notes. What I'm going to be throwing at you, and I'm telling you, this is really for people that are serious and want to, take some advanced steps here. So if you do feel like that's something that you're ready to do, I think it's good to actually even do it early on in the process. But you got to be actually willing to focus and devote some time to this. Can't be just an afterthought, right? Go and check this out at crowdcrux.com/masterclass. That link is crowdcrux.com/masterclass. That link again, crowdcrux.com/masterclass. I think you're gonna like it a lot, dude. I'm bringing a lot of cool stuff to that. In addition, one of the things that I like doing and kind of offering myself to my community is through individual coaching calls. And I'll be honest with you, it has been quite overwhelming recently in that we get a lot of inflow. We have a lot of new students who are always looking to work with us and work with me specifically. And this is something that I continue to do and make time in my schedule for, because I think it's very important. And I also think it's something that is a valuable service that anyone out there who really wants to, do it right, lay a strong foundation, has a budget even as well to go into their campaign, and they really want to figure out how to do this and to have that optimal result of not only, hitting their goal, but blowing past it and very quickly and having a mega campaign launch. For those people out there that are serious about this, it is one of my pledges to always have this be a part of my community when it comes to CrowdCrux. So if you are interested in doing an individual intensive coaching call with me, we've had people who do those calls that end up saving thousands of dollars and also making hundreds of thousands of dollars doing these calls. It's really, in my opinion, like an exceptional level of value which you get when it comes to this. I really tailor this as well to every single campaign, to every single type of individual, your skill set, your budgets, the industry that you're in. Also compare different platforms, the strategy, everything that goes into a campaign. This is really, you're investing in something which is going to have a really powerful impact, specifically if you do it early, okay? So if you're interested in discovering some of those gems that I talk about, go and check this out at crowdcrux.com/coaching. That link is crowdcrux.com/coaching. That link is crowdcrux.com/coaching. And you can book an individual one-on-one coaching call with me. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Leave a positive rating and review if you got a second on this podcast. And also on YouTube, if you're listening to this on YouTube, give me a thumbs up, man. Leave a comment down below. Let other people know this is worth their time. And whatever platform you're on, Spotify, would love a rating and review from you. But if nothing else, use this moment to go and take some action, right? You've learned a lot of stuff. Now put it into action, dude. You really take some action this week. Hopefully you move towards your goals. You set aside some more time and you really plow some energy into this sucker so you can launch a big campaign. You can come back on this show, hopefully, as one of the success stories. Thank you so much. My name is Sal, and I will see you next time.